So Realme has quite a comeback phone here, I think, with the GT8 Pro. They've really pushed the spec on this particular model here, and they decided to make things a little bit different. So they've partnered up for the imaging side of things with Richo, but they also have this, a interchangeable camera module. This is the world's first in a flagship phone. So if you're bored of a circular camera module, then swap it out for a more squared off, rectangular one. And it's powered by a Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen5. It has fantastic performance. In fact, the highest I've seen when it comes to Antutu scores. 7,000 milliamp hour battery, AMOLED screen that can peak at 7,000 nits. So what is included with our GT8 Pro? Well, we get our charger, and that's using SuperVOOC, 120 watts. There's also 50 watt wireless charging. We have our Type A to Type C cable, the SIM tray tool, that's located in the box, and we do get a TPU case. Now that's for, you can see, for the round camera module, but don't worry, there is another TPU case for the camera module, the square one, if you decide to change your mind. There's a quick guide on how to change that camera module. It's the first actual replacement of a camera module on a phone. There's a tiny little Torx screwdriver right there, a couple of Torx screws just in case you happen to lose the ones that are already on the phone. And here's the TPU case if you decide to go with the square camera module. Maybe you get tired of the round one, and that camera module is located right there, so you can screw that off and replace it if you wanted to, if you needed a change maybe. There are two colors. We have a dairy white and an urban blue. This is what I have. Now, the material on the back, if I get it in the right angle, it's a little hard to see here, but there are these like wrinkles. There's this texture onto the back of it, this rubber-like finish, and it gives it a lot of grip. I like it. I like the fact that Realme here has taken a few risks, doing a few things different to try and make the phone stand out a bit, especially with how stagnant things are at the moment. I think this is a good move, like the swappable interchangeable camera module and the materials here. So 214 grams. We're looking at a thickness here of 8.2. Metal frame around the outside. You can see the antenna lines. We have a SIM tray that takes 2 nano SIMs, dual loudspeakers, and a very good haptics motor in this too as well, I have noted. Now, it's got a 7,000 milliamp hour battery, and as I mentioned before, we've got the 120 watt charging, 50 watt wireless with it, and up the top here, an IR transmitter. That's a little port there for the loudspeaker, Type-C port down the bottom. Now, there is no 3.5 millimeter with this, or micro SD. Of course, we've come to pretty much expect that now. Now, some bad news when it comes to this Type-C port. It does not support video out. I have tested my monitor that works with every other phone, and when I plug this in, absolutely no mirror display or any external display options out of this Type-C port, so no video out. We have an AMOLED screen, and the refresh rate's up to 144 Hz. I have it forced to that, and it is very smooth, very, very quick, everything. And this Quad HD display, so the resolution is 3136 by 1440. It does go up to a high brightness mode of 2000 nits, but there is a maximum peak that it can do for a short time, and that is 7,000 nits, and it can be made out in direct sunlight. HDR10 Plus support, Dolby Vision also is supported with the screen, and it is 6.79 inches. The UI is Realme's UI 7 version now, and it is based off Android 16, and I've had no complaints with it, no bugs that I have experienced, and the updates, well, there'll probably be more coming through, and I hope to see some, especially for the camera side of things, and just some tweaks and improvements, optimization. So if you've used Color OS, then you'll be very used to this because it is really about the same. They're very, very similar. Realme UI, Color OS, and the performance so smooth. The optimization, they really have done an excellent job with this. Now, I won't go through a lot of the features because I don't do this. Most of us are Android users, so I'm not going to go into all of that because it would simply be too boring. There is one standout feature here, or a couple. You can turn on the GT mode. That is going to push the governor, the performance to the absolute top, the thermals as well, power saving mode too there, and you do have, I think it's in this setting here, there is a battery bypass option too as well, and that means it won't be charging the battery when it's plugged in. Use the power supply to help generate less heat and improve the performance, so that's great for gaming when you do have it plugged in. Now, when you first get it and power it on, there's a few bloatware applications, but Realme has done a very good job to keep the amount of pre-installed bloatware to a minimum. There's only a few there. That's excellent because a lot of brands are just cramming on so much crap that you got to spend 20 minutes removing it all. And here, it only took me about 3 minutes to remove what I consider bloatware. Now, there is eSIM support. Great to have that on board, of course. Believe it or not, some brands don't still have eSIM support. And Antutu score here, over 4 million. Okay, it has been increased with the version 11 now. They decided to up the scores. But still, it's the highest I have seen on version 11 of Antutu. This is beating the gaming phones that I have tested out, like the Red Magic. So that is a great score, but this is only for a short burst, a short benchmark. Now, the charging times here, we'll quickly look at those. They are about 40 minutes, just under 40 minutes, which is very good considering it's a 7,000 milliamp hour battery. Yes, it's been misreported here. And no, I didn't get the exact time because it doesn't like the Super VOOC charging. Now, screen on time. You're looking around 12 hours, 13 hours if you keep it on the dynamic refresh rate, which is very good. So it's a 2-day phone. Battery life is excellent with the GT8 Pro. So well done there, Realme. And what about the throttling? Oh dear, there had to be something. So this is the sour point of this phone, is that long-term gaming performance, it starts to degrade quite a bit around. Okay, this brings it on a bit sooner, this very demanding benchmark. It's about the 10-minute mark, you notice a drop off in the performance. Stability, very low, 33.2%. It's losing almost 70% of its initial burst performance when it is cool. Now, this is due to two things. I think the cooling in it maybe isn't that great, but also Realme's playing it really safe, and they throttle this phone down way too early, I believe. It only gets up to 44 degrees. Now, other brands will push the thermals well up into the 50s, over 50, 52, 53, and they will have a stability score of around about 50%. So I believe in a firmware update, Realme will probably address this, push the thermals a little more, and help improve the performance for gaming when you decide to have a long gaming session of, say, 30 minutes or 1 hour. It hopefully won't throttle as bad as it does right now, because in its current state, it's terrible. So another area where Realme's pushed ahead is the loudspeakers. They are very good. They are loud. They are excellent. They push this volume up louder than what I normally hear in other flagship phones. And I'm all for this because a lot of brands just, I think it's kind of an afterthought about the speakers. They don't put that much effort into it. And it seems Realme has a little bit more. Now, just before I get onto the sample that I normally play, the same track I know, but it's good for testing purposes and also copyright strikes. I won't get any with it. Is the other thing is the haptics, okay? So haptics on this are nice, short, little strong pulses. So they've done a good job with the audio, the haptics, and here is that sample. You can hear for yourself. It's quite loud. And then the gaming performance, yes, the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen5, it does perform really well, and we get great performance out of this. Now, I have Genshin Impact on the absolute top settings here, and it does warn me, it does say that it's too high, that you shouldn't use these settings, but, of course, I want to test out the performance of it. You do see some frame dips. The more you start to game, the performance does start to throttle off a little bit. So pretty much what we've seen with 3D Mark is going to happen in the games, but it takes a bit longer than 3D Mark because 3D Mark is even more demanding than this. Now, the frame rate currently, this is in the GT mode. You can see that it is, it's 60 frames per second pretty much. So it is very good. And you swipe from the side here, you've got the game assistant, and you have, this is the performance mode that I did turn on. The GT performance mode there, and that's where you can also put on this little monitor. And yes, I died. Now moving over to video with the Realme GT8. So front-facing camera can shoot 4K 30 and 60 with electronic image stabilization. And the quality does seem quite good. And the video with the rear cameras, we've got 4K 120 as well and 8K 30 frames per second, which I'll give you a sample of in this review. So the ultra wide is 50 megapixels like our main camera.
And this has electronic image stabilization, so you fit a bit more in the shot. Now it's 16 millimeters wide, so it isn't the widest. Now that 16 millimeter focal equivalent, of course, is when you're taking photos, so not with video, because there's some electronic image stabilization crop to that as part of the stability. Main camera now with its optical and electronic image stabilization. What do you think of this footage? Now, as I pan around, are we going to see jitter? Very difficult conditions because we've got bright light, sunset starting to happen there, and some dark shadows. So the audio exposure is working pretty hard here. And then the 200 megapixel camera. This one here is using optical too, and electronic. So I'll zoom into the castle. There's a 6x preset. And you can see it 6x, the quality now with the, half digital zoom, half optical, doesn't look quite as good. Stability does seem to be okay. I see a little bit of tremor coming through. Now I'll move over to an 8K sample and see if we can spot the difference, even though, of course, I've been scaling the video down to 4K. Should look sharper.
Before my camera samples, there is one thing I wanted to show you. That is our camera and some of the options we do get. Now, Pro Video, really good to see this, that we have log that we can shoot, but also log at 4K 120. That is something we don't normally see. It would normally be capped at, say, 4K 60, so 120, great. And then you can shoot, if you go into the video mode, 8K. Now, the 8K, this is with the main camera and also the periscopic 3.7x optical zoom camera. However, once you start to record, you'll see this, that I go to swap and it will tell me lens switching while recording 8K frames per second not supported. Now, I hope they can change that. Maybe it's too difficult for them to do that lens transition thing that they do. The other standout features in here, well, there's stabilization that you can control too as well. So you've got the ultra steady that you can have on. You've got the standard. But ultra steady is going to limit your resolution to 1080p, because if you go and change it, 4K, because 8K it's not going to work. So that only works up to the 4K, but still very good to have that option, portrait mode, and then of course the Richo. Now with the Richo, we can't seem to use the zoom camera for some reason. The Richo is limited to 28 and 40 millimeters at the time of this video. I hope software is going to change that, so we'll have to see what is going to happen there. But let's get on now to the camera samples that this phone produces. So out of the samples I've been taking, I do like the periscopic zoom camera the best. These are some of the samples from it. I was doing some street photography out and about at a medieval market. And the main camera, in general, okay. A little bit hit and miss, I did find. Zoom camera as well. I feel like there's some optimization still needed from Realme with these cameras. This is the Richo black and white, the high contrast mode. I did play around with that a little bit, and I do enjoy this, the different settings we have with that, but you can't use the periscopic zoom camera. This is a shot here that, okay, the focus isn't brilliant. Selfie shots seem to look pretty good. I still had the beautifying on. Ultra wide, good, but I do see a bit of over processing and the saturation's a bit weird. And the low light performance for me has been disappointing for a flagship. I definitely have seen better out of other 2025 flagship phones that I've been reviewing. So as I said, bit hit and miss, still some work to do, I feel, Realme with the cameras. With some software updates, they can really improve things. Well, there's so much to like about this phone. The screen, it's very bright. The UI is fluid. There's no bugs that at least I've encountered. Fantastic battery life of about 2 days. Frame and build quality, great. I like this new synthetic silicon style material on the back, like a leather. They call it a leather, but it's definitely not a leather, of course. But the interchangeable camera module is a nice thing to just, well, freshen things up a little bit. So if you don't like a circular camera module, well, then just swap it out to the more squared off one, and we've got that choice. And it also makes the phone a bit different. Partnership now with Richo, that's interesting. And what I've seen from the camera samples, there's a lot of potential there. I feel there's a bit more optimization needed. Sometimes with the exposure, the colors and whatnot, I feel it's definitely not at its optimal yet, and I hope to see some camera updates coming from Realme, and that could really improve things. Just like the throttling, there's a huge amount of throttling going on of that Snapdragon 8 Gen 5. The peak performance for short bursts, for short periods of up to around about 5-6 minutes is absolutely fantastic. The best I have seen yet, the way that they've pushed this, especially when using the GT mode. However, when you game for like 30 minutes or an hour, that performance really starts to drop off, and performance will basically halve or even worse. And I feel that Realme have decided to keep the thermals really good, but at the cost of performance, with long-term performance that is, when gaming for longer periods. So I hope a firmware update will fix this. But the phone, this flagship, has some serious potential to it. The GT8 Pro from Realme. Thank you so much for watching this review.